What's up, dudes and dudettes? This is, of course, your Shogun Sugi here, as always, and today I have great pleasure of reviewing this brand new Netflix original anime series which came out yesterday called Spriggan. Now, before we go into my review, I want to first break down a bit of the history and also what exactly is Spriggan about. So, Spriggan originally was a manga that was published from 89 until 96, so we're talking about pretty OG source material here. And there was also an OVA movie done back in 98, which was 90 minutes long, and it was basically adapting certain stories from the original 59 chapter manga, and that's what also the new anime is doing. But both the OVA and the new anime are adapting the stories in a different order as they were told in the manga, and that doesn't really matter because these stories are kind of standalone and they don't have really a connection to each other outside from episode 3 and episode 6, which both feature one recurring character which basically comes back in episode 6. So outside from that, you technically could watch them in any order as you please, long as you watch episode 3 before episode 6, which is the final episode of this season. And it's likely that this season 2 is going to be end of it based on the chapters we basically have in the manga. Now, what exactly is Spriggan about? So this is sci-fi shonen story which is heavily influenced by the ancient aliens theory. So people who have watched that amazing documentary TV show, which I love very much, it's basically a theory that back in the old days there were ancient civilizations which had amazing scientific technology. They could make the pyramids float, or they had generators under the pyramids, and all this type of crazy stuff basically. And Spriggan is basically playing that angle very much, that all of these crazy theories are actually true, and there are these artifacts around the world left by these ancient civilizations which basically ended up destroying themselves because they just had too amazing tech and they basically ended up killing each other, I guess. I mean, that's the premise right now as we are in the story. And this obviously is drawing from a lot of real stories like the Crystal Skull, which has been debunked, by the way. All of them are basically fake. Then there is the Noah's Ark story, and then there's a couple of other ones which are rooted somewhat in actual other ancient alien theories. And there's also that famous Incan pyramid, not a pyramid, but the sculpture which shows about the alleged spaceship, a person being in a spaceship. But there's a lot of these types of things, and so in case you haven't seen Ancient Aliens, you're gonna be seeing a lot of correlation between that, because there are a lot of pyramids and things like that which are considered part of this whole ancient alien theory. At the same time, you have these special military groups. The main one that we are focusing on is ARCAM Corporation, which have these paramilitary unit known as the Spriggans. That's where the name of the show comes from, and their quest is basically to seek and seal these relics away and prevent renegade actors from exploiting these powers. So, and these renegade forces are anywhere from Spetsnaz, SAS from UK, the American government. There's also some weird Japanese and other organizations which are mentioned. Some are real and some are totally fictional. And they have also their own special military units which have not special powers, but special equipment which give them like all types of crazy stuff. And it gives this sort of a very Metal Gear Solid type of a feel to it, especially because this was done back in late 80s and early 90s. You're gonna have that Ghost in Shell, Akira vibes here. And I like aesthetical style of this anime very, very much, and the base premise. I'm not very big on episodic story, but maybe since I'm not very familiar with the manga, but I believe that towards the end, all of these stories are going to be overlapping more, and we're going to be seeing all the characters, being more present in the latter stories of the manga when it's being adapted in season 2, which may be the last season given the fact that there's only 59 chapters, or maybe there's going to be 3. And also one of the interesting things about the anime is that these are 45-minute long episodes, so one episode is basically covering up one story, which was probably like 9 chapters long in the original manga. Now, let's get into my review out of this. So, actually, as of right now, the ratings are not very hot, and I think that it really has to do with 2 factors. One being the animation, and the other being that it's it's kind of making fun of a lot of Americans, which is most of the weeps watching, and rating these shits in the first place. So it's kind of like, portraying Americans as kind of like a, negative entity in the world and trying to like do kind of crazy shit in the world. And so are the other entities. And Japan is kind of like the only one that's looking good, really. And I don't mind that, this like Japanese bias coming through, but it's not like a very political show. This is just a side note, kind of like what I talked about in that Bandai Namco mecha thing. I can't remember the name right now, but whatever. But the animation, let's start with there. So it's a blend of 2D and 3D. It was done by David Production, who are obviously known from JoJo. And I think they did a great job. A lot of the fighting scenes, the characters kind of turn into more 3D, and they are sometimes more like 2.5D. They're like 3D models, which 2D is kind of drawn over more. And I do like the art style. There's really couple of very bad moments, like in the last episode with the ghosts. They had a very shitty looking movements, and it looked very unrealistic. Outside from stuff like that, I think the movements were really good, and the animation was solid. The backgrounds were very good. It, was a good blend of the two animation styles. And I guess Netflix has requested in general to do more 3D stuff because for two reasons. A, is going to be appealing more to the normies, the non-anime watchers, which this has been very much marketed to. And B, maybe 3D animation costs less to do. Now, I'm not 100% sure about that, but that's my assumption. Now, obviously, Netflix has always picks out anime that is not really going for a lot of anime tropes like Mo or tentacles or whatever, like these anime cliches that you tend to have these days. So Spriggan feels a lot more like a Western title if you put the animation aside in terms of like the behavior and how the characters act. Obviously, you have the main character who is teenager still, Yu Ominae, and he is in school, and there's a couple of cool school scenes out there because he's like doing this work, and then he also has to go to school, and the school is kind of like, very briefly shown in a couple of the episodes, but fundamentally like, the school thing is the only kind of thing I felt like could have been even like written out, unless it's going to be having a big impact in the later on in the story, which I don't know. But yeah, the animation is not really that bad. Now, other criticism was probably about dialogue. Now, when it comes to dialogue, the Netflix tends to do their own fucking subtitles sometimes, which are totally irrelevant what is being actually said. This being a good screenshot of something that was said and what was actually, or what was written, and what was actually said by the character was definitely not this. So there was a couple of moments when you see like, people throwing certain Japanese phrases, and then because I'm starting to learn Japanese pretty well already, and I can tell like this is not a real subtitle. Like the person may say a word and then there's actually no subtitles even at certain portions that I saw in the anime. So when people are talking about bad dialogue, they might have been talking about the subtitles or the English dub, which I have not touched upon. I don't know what is the level of it, and obviously I don't recommend watching it because you have the fucking superior Japanese dub. Now, what are the other things we should talk about? Well, let's talk about the music, which we always talk about. It's funny that nobody else really talks about in their reviews about the OST. Somehow, like, it's not irrelevant to the reviews. Everybody's so fucking fixated on their fucking waifus and the fucking animation. It's just like, oh, pretty colors, right? But, okay, so I like the OP, I like the ED. You had Shing O2, which, used to work with Nujabes, people who listen to chill step. So it was a very chill step track on the ED, really much appreciating that. And the opening was also solid, kind of forgettable, but still okay. And the rest of the OST, I can't really say that I was really impressed or something that I could remember. The ED was probably the best part about it, but generally positive soundtrack, as I didn't really find out anything that was really bad. Now, only critiques I really have about this anime is kind of the episodic format, but since I haven't been able to find even their like last chapters of the manga, or able to read the manga as of right now, I don't know if it's going to get less episodic towards the end, because it's kind of like in a lot of the episodes they kind of introduce one new character which is part of the organization. So a lot of these side characters which have been there for one episode, like Jean, or what was his, the Mirage, for example, those are like only in one of the episodes, and kind of introducing them, and maybe they will have more appearances towards the end. But I kind of like this ancient aliens, old civilization type of narrative here, and it's been very, creative at times, spilling those original stories, whatever it's about Crystal Skull and things like that, and making their own. But I didn't like the forest episode. It had certain redeeming qualities, but it was kind of meh. And also the Crystal Skull episode was really bad. I didn't like that one either. So that was probably the weakest link. But the first episode, second episode, those were really, really good in my opinion. And the last episode wasn't half bad either. But fundamentally, I think people are criticizing too much the anime, perhaps, on superficial points. I think fundamentally it's pretty good. And this is definitely better end of that 3D animation that some of the other Netflix anime have had. Maybe Ultraman had certain segments which looked a lot worse, or Aijin, or what else did they have? Well, they have done a couple of these 3D animes, and not all of them have looked as this solid. And remember, this is still like mostly 2D, but people pay too much attention to that instead of like the meat to the bone, the context, the substance, the symbolism, everything that is really, important here. And also critique has been about the characters, but this is a show from the fucking 80s and 90s. You didn't have really amazing characters back then in manga, and don't fucking talk me about Goku or somebody else, like holy shit. So given to that context, I think the characters are pretty decent, but I don't much have else to add here. Definitely want to see more of Spriggan, and given to the fact that there was only 6 episodes, although there were 45-minute episodes, which was also a thing maybe Netflix wanted to do to cater more to the normies. I don't know why, but whatever. They could have Spriggan down to the all in half, so you had 12 episodes, and then you could have marketed as a whole series, or it is a whole series, but maybe you would have gotten more eyeballs if there was 12 episodes. Who knows? But there's definitely going to be a season 2, which has been confirmed. Whatever, there's going to be a season 3. I'm not 100% sure yet, because I remember like all of these stories being around 8 chapters long each, and now we have gone through 6 already, so there can't be that much story left now to be told on the original manga. I might also get around watching the OVA, which is adapting, I believe, the forest episode, and also Noah's Ark. But thanks for watching, guys. I will be seeing you in the next video when that will be coming out. See you soon.